Patty Mac. Dance 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when Option Omega releases new features, he's free to come out and play. Option Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's good to get back to, for those, especially as you get older, who we get a little confused. Last week, Tuesday was Monday, and so now we're back to creatures of habit, back to that Monday, Friday.
And another holiday coming up soon, right?
You're kidding?
Well,
PSA,
Juneteenth.
yeah, Juneteenth. I don't know what day that is. We're going to give you a live update in case you
Pretty
also
sure
don't
it's
know. What day
13th, right?
Juneteenth is.
Wow.
I mean, what day?
Oh, well. A great question. I don't know.
It's Thursday, June 19th.
Okay.
There it is.
Matt is being humble right now because Matt is an Eastern Conference champion.
Yeah,
Champion.
personally.
It's right. That's right.
We're talking to the Eastern Conference champion. Second time. Last time Matt's people were Eastern Conference champions, I was a young lad. I was rooting for their coach, Mr. Larry Bird.
Yeah.
A surprisingly baller coach. I really think he probably could have run some rings if he had any desire to coach.
Yes.
I think he just did it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think he coached like 2 or 3 years. He didn't coach a long time.
He didn't coach. You know, I'll just say this on Larry Bird, who is around these parts and other parts as well, affectionately known as the Hick from French Lick, which is a town, a pretty small town in Indiana, famous for a casino, a hotel, and Larry Bird. And Larry Bird had maybe could argue the best record of success at every level of basketball, a Hall of Fame player, very, very good coach, and then also an executive who was pretty successful. You look at some of these other player executives like who were very good, like Jordan, not so hot as an exec, never did the coaching thing. And then you look at some of these execs that are maybe a little more thought of that were decent coaches, or like a Steve Kerr, but they're not at the level of player that Bird or Jordan was. So just saying, I don't know Larry personally, never met the guy.
Well, and arguably Jordan, you know, at both the ownership level and the player level, just wasn't as good as people think. Maybe he should have been.
This is probably a whole separate.
Matt, check for lightning. Is there any lightning coming over Trey's right now?
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you, as I drove from Tennessee to Chicago yesterday. I'll be honest with you. I felt a little energy as I was driving through Indianapolis. I was gonna call Matt and just say, "Hey, I'm driving through the Mecca right now."
Can feel the buzz.
I felt the buzz. I felt the excitement. And it's definitely not the most pretty drive in the world as you're driving on 65 or whatever.
Sure isn't.
But it felt some excitement. And I don't think people really understand, you know, when you're getting into the culture of Indiana basketball, when you drive on the expressway, only in Indiana could you see, and I see this all the time, and it means a lot to me, Rick Mount. People like, you know, legendary shooters. Rick Mount played for Purdue, but you'll see on the highway, blah, blah, blah town. I can't even think of the town. Home of Rick Mount. Right. Home of the great Indiana shooters. You know, so no one appreciates basketball better than, you know, Indiana is just like, it's a very.
I mean, I'll just say this for people who are maybe bored. I understand, but here's an interesting tidbit. You can Google this. And some homework, and just Google up the size of Indiana high school basketball gyms, because there's a lot of small towns in Indiana that are have these gyms that are these places that you've never heard of if you're not from here, but they have gyms where like half the population of the town will fit in. So it might be like a 20,000 person town, and then they have like an 8,000 person or 12,000 person gym, and that's for their
insane.
high school basketball.
Think about how many colleges, Matt. If you look at, I mean, there's top colleges. I mean, most I think of like UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara. They call it the Thunderdome.
Yeah,
they don't have 8,000. I think it's, most of these stadiums don't have 8,000. But you're right. It's like Indiana basketball or Texas football or Ohio football. It's insane how when you think of the whole town comes there. What would you just for curious? Now you got me going.
Yeah.
What town would you say has one of these? Like
Seymour is an interesting one to look up, which is about an hour south of Indianapolis. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think it's close to the ratios I was talking about. Yeah. Basketball.
Indiana, how much do they love in basketball in Indiana?
49.
They have a coach that won a lot that is on video choking children, and Indianans will say he won a lot of games.
That's right.
He won a lot of games.
Who was that? That's
Bobby Knight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, what am I saying? Yeah.
So
there's the homework assignment if you're really into this topic, everybody.
Yeah, love it. So listen, we've got our basketball checked off. Finals start Thursday, is that right, Matt?
Yeah. Thursday, yeah. And it's brutal because they put it on late. So it's 8:00. These games get done at like 11 or 11:30 when the Pacers are playing, even though they play fast. So
yeah, they do play fast. All right. Yep. So listen, we had a big Friday. We launched Automation Friday. The response has been really encouraging. Thankful for all the kind words everybody said. But now the real fun begins, because we have been doing this small account challenge where we've been looking at smaller trades. And Friday's show, I showed basically how fast it is to automate a strategy. And I'm going to show you the strategy that we looked at. And I'm going to show you why I stopped automating it and talking through it. It was a show. I did it for show, but now I've turned it off. And this is why. So you guys ready for that?
Yeah, okay. Sounds interesting, Troy.
Okay, so this is let me do this real quick. I'm playing with videos this morning. There we go. Okay, so this is shout out Steven, because he did a ton of work, tested a bunch of stuff, and he found one that was interesting. And it was basically, instead of just putting on one trade at 3 p.m., which is what this original trade looks like, what if we did it every basically 5 minutes all day long? So you'll see here that it's got it 10:05, 10:25, 10:45, 11:15, 11:45, 12:15, 12:45, 1, 1:20, 1:40, 1:55, 2:10, 2:25, 2:55, 3:05, 3:20, 3:35, and 3:45. And this every time, basically for those who are new to it, every time you're opening this double calendar, which is a 2-4 double calendar, 20 delta at the shorts, same strike at the longs. And you are exiting the trade at 2:45, and you're using leg deltas. And just to remember, the leg deltas on that are the put side. If it goes above a 70, you're getting out. The call side, if it goes below a 70, you're getting out.
And can you just talk for like 30 seconds about leg deltas, Troy, about what is a leg delta for somebody who's maybe new, or why would you do that?
Well, it's a way basically of getting out without going too far in the money. And with a double calendar, you can go a little bit in the money. That's fine. But you don't, especially as we get towards expiration, you really don't want to hang on to these things if they're blowing past the money.
Yep.
And your brokerage will not like you at all if you let it get too far below.
There you go.
That's a promise. So I did.
You're protecting people from themselves, because you don't, especially early on, the first day of the trade or the first 5 hours, you don't want to blow and past the short strike. I mean, your expiration break evens, which can change a little bit on a mixed month spread, but I think these rails really keep the sanity in it, because that's really it. You don't want it going to the break even the first 3 hours of this trade. And I think having these rails at 70 delta is a very, very good risk management technique. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
Well, so I did one other thing this weekend. I upped the slippage because now that, much to my amazement, as I say, chagrin, but not chagrin. People have been watching OO show and just trading stuff. They're like, here's a trade, I'll just trade it. And I've noticed that people say, hey, is the slippage realistic on this test? Because I'm going to trade it. Well, we've said, hey, don't trade any test just because we show it. Do your own homework, look at it, get confidence in the back test first. But two, I also want to be responsible on our end. So we're up in the slippage to 3 cents on these Qs trades, just because I think Qs is super liquid. I don't think it's going to be much more than that, if ever. But, you want to try to be more realistic. So I've upped the slippage to 3 cents entry and exit. Opening fees $1. Now, what I said at the beginning of this, I'm not going to do this. Why? Well, it's not anything Steven. It's the shout out Steven. This is an awesome way to look at what would happen with double calendars. Because when you look at these entries, like a lot of times people would do this with like multiple entry iron condors or multiple entry put spreads. But this is something different. This is double calendar. And what I wanted to look at was I want to go back to the original trade. And if you notice that what we're doing, we're basically putting 18 spreads on every Monday in this trade, in this tranche trade. I mean, those times equal out to 18. So I wondered what would happen if I just did 18 at the original time of 3 p.m. And let me show you that real quick. So a couple things, because we don't have a comparison screen here. I just want you to take note. Take note of the MAR and the P&L.
Take a mental snapshot or
mental
screen snapshot.
6.7 MAR.
6.7 MAR.
So this is doing this with 18. Now, a couple things with this. I'm looking at both. You can't see both. It's a higher MAR, but this is the thing about being realistic with stuff. It's almost the exact same trade. The drawdown's the same. The tranche, you get 31,000 P&L, 6.7 MAR. This one's 38,000, 7.67 MAR. So, but there's a more important reason than this, and this is what I wanted to talk about. Is I think one of the main differences is, I'm going to go back and forth, is this. Notice the trades here that we're doing with the tranche.
Yep.
We're putting 2,384 of these suckers on. And this same back test, which are putting 18 on at the same time.
Yes.
We're doing 132 total.
Yes.
That will have implications depending on your brokerage.
Yes.
Matt, what do I mean by that?
Well, there's brokerages that cap the fees on non-index options. So if you're doing this on a vehicle like QQQ, there's brokerages out there that will cap your fees to where you only pay fees for a certain number of contracts, like 10 contracts or something like that. So that's going to vary per region, per broker, etc.
Yeah. So, and in a lot of cases, like say you cap it. Well, if you're running 2,000 one at a time versus 18 at a time, 132 times, that is thousands of dollars in difference.
Yeah.
And if we're a small account trader, that really matters. That really matters to us. So we're trying to be as realistic as we can and go from there. So this is what we did. Now, I'm going to do something. This is a new day. I've been waiting to do this. I'm excited about it. I'm going to automate this, and I'm actually going to trade this today. Okay. But this is what I'm going to do. Because because it's me and and options involve risks, and this isn't financial advice. I'm not going to give you. I am going to do the small account challenge. I think it'd be fun to do, but I'm going to do one thing real quick. Okay, I'm not doing 18 because I want this to be balanced, equivalent to what I'm doing with other things. The small account challenge.
Yeah,
and I have some other SPX stuff that I do one lots on. So I want to go 10 contracts per trade on this. Does that make sense? To try to keep at least the balancing a little together on my.
You could even start with one.
Don't want to start with one.
Okay.
But you definitely could start with one.
Definitely could.
Definitely could start.
So Troy, does this mean you're doing 10 contracts per trade, but you're doing one a day, right? Or one on Monday?
Yeah, this is just Monday. So every Monday I would open 10 spreads.
At 2:40 at 3:05 p.m. Okay, 10 trades. That's your maximum. Okay.
What, Matt?
I just thought of something. Somebody linked something in the discussion about timing and automation, but I don't want to get us off topic. Maybe I can circle back to it in a minute here.
Well, circle back now, and then I'll talk about automation.
There was a link. Troy, do you know anything about this? I believe you were at a conference, and there was an article that I noticed came out on Bloomberg about how options automation is has the thesis of the article, I think, was that there's times throughout the day when options volume is accelerated, and the thesis was maybe that option automation is contributing to that. I was just wondering if you had any take about it or know anything about that article, Troy.
Well, I was in that artical, Matt.
You were.
Yeah. My first Bloomberg article. I have some friends from church. We're going out to celebrate my first Bloomberg article tomorrow night at a Brazilian steakhouse.
Wow.
But that article basically was saying that if everybody's going to go at the same time, this is not going to end well for retail. And my only argument with them was to say, at least in our community, the people I see, people are both buying and selling premium.
Yes.
They're not doing one trade all day long. They're not all doing it together all day long. So,
Troy, one thing on that. I mean,
please.
I'm going to say, as my Irish grandmother would say, that's a bunch of malarkey. I remember, in my opinion, as far as let me give my analogy. But first, the point is, you're saying that if everybody, if 100 people from Option Omega come in and do double calendars, they're saying that's going to be a negative.
They're saying that across the spectrum, if everybody's opening, I think their presumption is that everybody's doing iron condors at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And that what market makers are going to like abuse them because of that, or they're going to get hurt because
a couple things. Number one, if we're talking SPX, we're talking the Atlantic Ocean, right? And we're making, huge, if Matt or you could give some numbers on the daily volume in the SPX, number one. But number two, you have firms like Citadel and other firms on iron condors and stuff. They're hedging against everything. It's nothing to do, 20 years ago, I remember have students come in and do 1,000 contracts, 2,000 contracts, 3,000 contracts. So now we're talking, I just don't think that, and the other thing is they can't abuse because there's so much competition in doing these things. Could they raise it a little bit? But this image of a market maker, people saying, okay, here comes Options Omega, or here comes these guys doing iron condors. Let's really rake them over the coals. In reality, for many reasons, you can't do that. There's competition, and these guys are huge. I mean, Citadel, I don't think people have an idea how big these firms are. They can, maybe they'll do 1,000 at $1 and 1,000 at $1.01, but I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, and the other thing, because people always said, I've heard this, that because of, if everybody's doing iron condors and they're working, it won't work after a while. Well, here's the thing. what's not going to work is, in my opinion, 70 to 80% of people who are doing double calendars, iron condors, most of them are not good risk managers. They're not going to stick with it. So I think with the Options Omega tool, you have great rails and great risk management. So people will stay in business probably for a while. But because risk management is a craft and a lot of people don't stick with it, I don't think those things will ever, from a realistic point of view, I heard this stuff 30 years ago in terms of,
interesting. That's interesting that perspective has been around that long. Dan.
Oh yeah, it's been. I've heard when I first started teaching 30 years ago, Dan, if everybody's doing iron condors, it won't work after a while. And I said, because human nature, people aren't going to stick with the risk management, but the liquidity in SPX, wouldn't you say it's staggering? Matt, have you looked at the numbers in Troy?
Well, I mean, I would defer to you on the liquidity and discussion about impacting the market, because here's the other part that I think is just being under talked about that I think is equally as important, if not maybe more important. A few things. Number one, these back tests, and we've had kind of this discussion on the show before about our can back tests erode edge, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what I would say. These back tests that we show are concepts. It is trivial easy. And we've done it on the show. I think we did it on this, where while we were on the show, I ran 10 different variations of this same back test and changed the delta slightly and the minute slightly. And they all had roughly, very close to the same performance. And so when you talk about eroding edge, now, if people are just Muppets and taking somebody's automated strategy, and we're not the only people that do backtesting and automation. There's other Discords. There's we get that. If somebody in any corner of the internet makes a strategy and a bunch of people just Muppet it and copy it with the way the automation works now, there's infinite, just in changing the deltas and the time, you could make so many variations of this trade that would be functionally to your point. And that's, to circle this back to the conversation, the version we had with that we showed with 18 tranches, it wasn't exactly the same. There were a little bit of differences in capture rate, but I bet if you go through that and look at any of those periods within the 5-minute period, you could change, if you change the delta, 1 or 2 delta, 2 delta is going to be a different strike, right? 1 delta might be a different strike. 3 delta will certainly be a different strike. You change the deltas, you change the time a couple minutes, and then you're essentially functioning in the same concept, the same back test, but you're going to have no overlap with anybody else for liquidity if you're changing your deltas a little bit and the entry time varies a minute, or even intra-minute. If people start entering these intra-minute, if somebody enters this at 47 seconds, it's going to be before the people getting in at the top minute and after the people getting in at the top of the previous minute. They'll probably have gotten filled. So I felt like that article, aside from, spiking Troy's Google search, which was awesome, one of the things that it made me think about was just the way that automation allows for flexibility, because you don't have to sit and click at the exact second. And, our tool, you can change the deltas and you can change the minute to be, you're at the Golden Corral. It's just an endless buffet of choices. I don't know if you guys have Golden Corrals down there in Tennessee. I think you probably do. Do you know, Troy, do you have Golden Corrals down there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. And it's like at the Golden Corral, it's like you can eat the whole time on the chicken wings. The bone-in chicken wings,
absolutely,
in Columbus, Indiana, are really good. Or if you want to relive your 13-year-old self like me, it's just the really yellow round corn chips with kind of the questionable beef, but nacho cheese. 3 versions of the food that are all kind of not great on their face, but when you put them together, it's magic. automation is the same buffet of choices
Wow.
between the deltas, between the minutes, between just those two variables will allow a very high level of customization. So that was a rant. That was a yappuccino. I hope you've had your coffee. If not, drink some of that yappuccino. And to circle back though, Troy, that's my feeling on the whole timing. You know, if somebody's watching you and they trade a back test, I mean, and they're just trading without knowing what they're talking about, they're just missing an opportunity, you know?
Hey, can I throw one more thing on liquidity and market makers and all that?
Absolutely.
I mean, when I was in the pit, and we were a specialist for years, I mean, I think the 0-day stuff and what you guys are doing, and people in the 0-day or shorter term trade, it's revolutionizing trade. I love it. Market makers absolutely adore it because all we want is inventory, right? And you think, you know, out of all the people doing 0-day stuff, are they all doing double calendars? Do you think there's a lot of people buying?
Most people are not.
So all we want, when I'm in the pit, where market makers want more than anything, for them to provide liquidity, for them to provide tight markets, for them to, you know, which the 0-day stuff has helped. We just want volume. I don't care what it is. If someone comes in and does 1,000 double calendars, we love it. We'll sell the double calendar. So if the market makers are taking the opposite, that gives them inventory. And then they're going to be long gamma, or they're going to have just the opposite position. They're going to be long gamma. So now they're looking, okay, I'm a little bit on my inventory or my book. Now I took the opposite of 1,000 double calendars. Now I got like, you know, I've got something, I want the market to move, right? Because I'm long the stuff that they're short. And so it gives me something to work with. And then, but here's the thing. It's not like I'm a market maker. I'm taking the opposite of a double calendar. No, you know what it is? It's like a chop shop in Chicago. Excuse the bad analogy. I'm taking that double calendar, the opposite of it. Let's say I take the opposite 1,000 times. Within a half hour or 20 minutes, it's done. I've chopped off. I've taken the short side of that double calendar. I've turned it into this. I've inventory. I'm moving on. You know, it's not like I could care less. I may see you guys do the double calendar and I may say, I love that trade. But because I'm an inventory guy, because I'm a liquidity provider, I'm a chop shop. I take that and I'm getting out of the shorts. I'm moving the long. So if you ask me 25 minutes after I took down 1,000 double calendars from you guys, I'm on to the next thing. That's old. I could, you know, I'm on to something else because it gives me pieces. But the bottom line is the more volume I have in there, the tighter the markets I can make, the better the liquidity. So the 0-day is wonderful from an inventory. And I'm not concerned with, you know, because you could look at the volatility, because you would think if everybody in the 0-day world is selling call, you know, they're doing iron condors and why isn't the volatility staying real low? Why isn't it? Because if we take that thought and say you're doing double calendars and iron condors and I'm a market maker, I'd lower the volatility to 12, right? If it's just you against me, but I don't see the volatilities any different than they were 25 years ago. When the market goes down, vols go up. I mean, Troy, you're the volatility guru. Do you think that there are the
volatility guru?
Are the 0-day people keeping the volatility down with all their selling of
that's a whole nother episode.
This was my point with the reporter. A very kind man, by the way. He was very kind. But this was my point, and I knew that I was taking. He acknowledged this, that I was taking the opposite position of the thesis of the article. But that someone said, "Well, isn't the article saying that everybody opens iron condors?" This is how tricky this stuff is. Is like we associate volume with iron condors.
Yeah.
All it says is volume. It doesn't say iron condors. It just says that volume spike at specific minutes. Now, are the majority of people selling premium? Yes, more options traders sell premium than buy premium at a retail level. That's fair. But here's my thing. Three possibilities. One was my possibility is that I think people are buying and selling all the time. Two, I think that people, let's say market makers widen the bid ask at those minutes to get you a little bit. Okay, cool. But what else are they doing? Well, to Dan's point, they get to buy 0-day puts because you're selling them, and so it actually has a stabilizing effect on the market.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why we've seen so much what do you call it? Reverberation back to the mean. Mean reversion. Reverberation. I don't think so.
I like that. Mean reverberation.
Yeah. So
say that 3 times.
That's right. But finally, my main thought with that is the thing I communicated to them was, what I don't like to see is this idea of saying like, well, retail, because they're just big dummies, they're going to do these minutes and then everybody's just going to rake them over the coals because all the smarter guys are going to do it. Well, my point is we have the data too. Everything's been democratized. So retail traders who are data driven are going to be able to see, 10 a.m. doesn't work anymore. If they do that, if the mean boys hurt the good guys, whatever you want to use, you'll be able to see that as well. And so to me, it's just everybody has data now. That's the main point I was going to try to make. To the point of everybody has data, we got to roll. But I want to get this on because I'm going to trade this today. So I want to just do this real quick. That's a good discussion that I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot in the coming months.
Sorry for hijacking and going the other way.
Oh, no, that's perfect. So back to the trade here. So I'm going to automate this. Okay. I don't want you to automate this. Backtesting and options involve risks, and trading involves risks. And so I'm just doing this to show you what I'm going to do. That's all. I limited it to 10 contracts because I want to match as much as I can 1 contracts of SPX. I know Qs are not SPX. I know all this. Just my uneducated filtering mechanism. So here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to automate it. I'm going to go, it's active because it's an active strategy now. I'll put my account. I will do, everything looks good here. Obviously uses ZeroDTE. I'm going to put 10 contracts. Now on this, you can do fixed value, you can do percentage, or you can do fixed quantity. Because of 10, I'm just going to do 10 here. Okay. I'm going to put it at 305 Mondays. Everything looks good. We carried it over from the back test. Here's the one difference, entry and exit. I'm going to increment this at 1 cent instead of 5 cents since it's Qs. And I'm going to, for right now, I'll probably leave it at 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And you can play around with this. Each test might have different execution criteria that you want to look at, but we give you the freedom to do that. You could also switch to a market order. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm not interested in ignoring bidless longs for this type of strategy. We'll talk more in the coming weeks about that stuff. We've got a lot built in. But Matt, does that feel good to you looking through that?
Yeah. Hey, it's a great start. Let's see how it goes. Let's
go. Well, it's live. So this is going to trade at 305 unless something crazy happens, unless I can't get filled. It's going to do exactly what I asked it to do.
Did you put a minute time for exit execution? That's one thing I might do. If you go down to entry window under entry execution, if you hover over the little maybe 3 minutes or 2 minutes, but that explains what the entry window does. But it basically, if you don't get filled in the first minute, the platform will take a look at the strikes and premium, try again the next minute, and that's a customizable field. So,
okay, that's smart. Should I do, what do you think, 2 minutes?
You could, 2 minutes is twice the tries of 1 minute. I think 2 minutes would be, again, this isn't, so there is a little bit of an art in configuring the exit execution. I would say, in my experience, and this isn't advice, it's just telling you what I've experienced, that the ramp and the learning curve with that is very minimal compared to the ramp and the learning curve with backtesting.
Because we're carrying everything over, and so
Well, even dialing in the entry execution. I mean, what we tell people on slippage, people will want, like with backtesting, people want, what do you think appropriate slippage is? Well, the best person to determine your slippage is you through forward testing. And the best person to determine the entry execution is the user through using the platform. So,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Big day. First small account trade in the hopper.
In the hopper.
We're ready to roll. So we'll check back in tomorrow on that trade, see how it's doing.
Yep.
Look at it and go from there. But listen, guys, it's exciting. Dan's got a golf tournament to get to. For those who don't know, Dan is Tiger Woods Sheridan.
Oh yeah.
And
Exciting.
and I'm excited to hear about how that goes.
Well, once in my life, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that's right. Well, listen, you guys have a great day.